Good evening. We start our weekly analytical independent program Defacto review. In this program, we always share with you our analysis on the most important three events in the political, economic, social life of Mongolia. This time we present you three topics. First, the Mongolian Parliament approves strategy of decreasing loan interest rate. Most probably anti-usury law will be approved shortly. Second topic, capital market of Mongolia is still frozen. Some public companies keep the report still secret from shareholders. The third topic, are new public officials keeping distance from the media? State Palace journalists protest. Our first topic about the parliament decisions to decrease so-called strategy of decreasing loan interest rate. So new law is approved. And most probably they're going to approve another law, anti-usury law, in order to have decreased interest rate in Mongolia, because the promise during election, the ruling party have found that the main reason of having poverty is unemployment. In order to increase jobs, we need to have a less expensive loan in the country, which is currently within the banking system around 16.2% with average rate, which is coming because a high interest saving rate, which is a little above 10% a year. In the process of discussing this law, the draft, a lawmaker, Income of Lang, was suggesting to have a more tax on earnings for very high top sum of savings. Then it was supported by another lawmaker, Dorj Khan, who is representing first time a Labour Party in the parliament. He was even going to further suggest more sliding scale or progressive taxes on high net worth individuals' earnings on their bank saving. And they have the following argument. Today, 90% of total sum of savings belong to 80% of savers. In terms of savers amount, total 17 trillion MNT savings, around 10 trillion belong, or 60% of the sum belong to the owners who owns more than 10 million Tuareg saving. What does it mean? Will Mongolia have a progressive tax or not? That's the topic we want to share with you today. Well, first of all, let's see why some countries have a sliding scale taxes, some have a flat tax like Mongolia. We have a lot of personal income tax, not depending on the size of income, it's flat 10%. And it was also the saving interest earning was not taxed in Mongolia till 2017, where the IMF conditions require, when IMF loan was given to the country, the conditions was to install that taxes, which was installed for the last 2-3 years. But now question is coming whether we change or not this flat tax. Flat tax is important for developing countries where there is a relatively small accumulation of capital. The progressive tax are usually used in the highly developed nations where truly the difference between lower income and higher income is really huge. So we should see that from that perspective. But however, there are some interesting examples in case of having sliding scale, whether we connect this dividend income or saving interest rate income earnings to be combined together with other income or not. I take here United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has three income tax brackets. Those who has income per year about 12.5 thousand pounds, they don't pay income tax. Those who are in between 50K and 50K, those who up to 50K pay more than 20% tax. In between 50 to 150, they pay 40%, and over 150,000 pounds income people pay 45%. But those people who are in the bracket of 20%, their saving interest income under 1,000 pounds are tax exempted. But over this amount is paid up to 40% tax. If it is more than up to 500 pounds a year is exempted, but over that is 40% tax. And 45% tax bracket people pay anyway, whatever they earn on interest earning and as dividend. What is the situation in Mongolia? Mongolia was, as I said, we pay 10% tax on saving interest rate, interest earnings. But we have never been taxed up to now. Up to 2017, we have not paid tax forever, but since 1990, no tax on saving interest rate earnings. But we have been paying taxes 10%, like flat 10% tax like any other income, for dividend earnings. So why we need to tax more, and why we should not make more tax? That's what is dividing the society today. So for that, I'll bring some statistics to you about the financial market compared to the economy of the country. Financial market is consisting of money market, all money up to, with the term up to 1 year, and if more, then all this regarded as capital market. Banking asset to GDP shows how much monetized the economy. In Finland, for example, it's 100%, Singapore 150%, Japan 157%, China 174%, Hong Kong, the number one in the world, 256%. It is the amount of total banking asset to the economy, GDP. In Mongolia, this amount was, in 2017, it was 60%. Today, it's 90%. The remaining is consisting of the non-bank financial sector and small part from capital market. There are countries where substantial large, more than banking asset, total market capitalization of a country are very large compared to the economy. It is mostly financial centers, and where more or less tax, we call it heaven, or tax is at least predictable, no change it. Hong Kong 2018 market cap value was 3.9 trillion US dollar, when the economy is only 362 billion USD, or 10 times more than the economy. So if you add banking asset, which is 2.7 times more, then the financial market in the Hong Kong 13 times more than the economy. That's why it's no surprise why so many investments, up to recent events, led to China and other things. Hong Kong was, that's why, the financial center of the Southeast Asia. So economic growth needs finance. No finance, no projects, no jobs. So where this money comes from, either from banks or capital market. In Mongolia, there is a lot deficit of money. That's the reason why bank loan is very expensive, more surge. A lot non-bank institutes, still they don't meet the demand of businesses that need financing. In 2004, GDP in Mongolia was only 2.8 trillion MNT, and banking asset was only less than 1 trillion MNT, only 30%. Market capitalization was on 29 billion, or 0.1% of the economy. But today, as I said, the economy is good, 40 trillion MNT after about 15 years, and capital market also have increased, but still it is not enough. As I said, Mongolian banking asset today is 100%, almost 90% to the economy, which is relatively better, but still this country needs money, and the people needs diversification of their assets allocation. Now, if they find in particular increasing the interest rate or tax on interest earnings, then will the people pay or divert the money to the capital market, to the country? That's the question of our second topic. We touch the issue of the quality of capital market of Mongolia. So our second topic is about capital market of Mongolia, which is still, I find, frozen, because recently they have announced that out of listed 199 companies, only 96 of them out of 100, almost 200 companies, less than 50%, made the report available to FRC and to the public for their financial operation for the first half of 2020. They also should deliver their operational report. Only 47 of them have delivered that by this time. Holding companies, they should report their first half year report by August 1st, and annual report by April 1st. But as a result, as I said, not only less than 50% of the Mongolian shareholder company or public companies are reporting. And why? And what's happening? And what happens if in Mongolia they are not reporting like this now? That's the subject we have studied, and it turned out, unlike many other countries, this non-payment of, non-even delivery of information is not punished in the country properly. Here in Mongolia there is a so-called a rule of securities issuers information transparency. That rule is approved in 2015. It is a rule of Financial Regulatory Commission. But they have not even updated that rule, which is changed afterwards, because in 2016, Mongolia made a new law which is called law on violations. And there are so many violations, but including also this financial reporting violations are included in this law. And as I said, it was approved in 2016, and in this law, in provision 11.10, there is a particular articles touching the non-reporting of shareholders' companies' operation. According to this law on violations, the shareholders' companies should report their financial and operational activities by the rule of the regulatory agency, in this case, Financial Regulatory Commission, and they must make available publicly the information within a certain period, and at the same time also inform about that, making public, that they should note FRC, related to regulatory agency, and their brokers. If they don't do it on time, they got the penalty, 20,000 units. The units is about 1,000, so total about 20 million tugriks penalty they receive only. At the same time, when they maybe receive 20 billion tugriks of shareholders, but their penalty is only 20,000. As we know, in the US, for example, there is a 10Q report obliging public companies to inform on time all shareholders. If they don't do that, after 6 months, there is a special announcement of not doing that. There is a special gazette and they announce it. And within 6 months they don't do, there will be special commission created and they will have liquidate the assets of that public company. And I think it's more fair because they're already working with the public money. And the liquidation is coming to the certain degree who is taking the either property or share sales at whatever price, who receives first. So this kind of regulation Mongolia needs. Our third topic about the media. Our new public officials keep distance from media. State Palace journalists protest. Why? Well, there are almost 450 journalists are accredited to work in the Parliament House. 150 of them were given accreditation from the cabinet, and 300 of them is given from the Parliament offices. So with this special permission, they come into the interview. In Mongolia, there is more than 500 outlets, media outlets, so almost everybody, one person can have that permission. Since the COVID-19, the rules are changing. In particular, Mongolia is in a high preparedness state for already many months. And from March, they are supposed to be only in one place identified or specified for their relations with public officials. And that was given already difficult situation to them because public officials, parliament members, cabinet members, they could talk only when they want to their public, not when to the media, not when media wants to meet them. And it was always hard to have an interview with each of them. In that case, you need special permission, go to their office, then there will be a special guard with you all the time. But because this new parliament, new cabinet is created, and because the members, high-ranking members, are not much keeping that social distance specified in this quarantine, in the parliament, in the state palace, the public officials are not much following all these rules. Yet they are demanding the journalists keep their old regime and keep staying there and wait for them to come. Only then they can ask questions, etc. So last week, the journalists made protest. They put all microphones, cameras, everything on the floor and thus they show that they need more access to the politicians. Why? Because they may be so that the new politicians, new parliament members, cabinet members are a little bit keeping distance from the media. Maybe they don't want to talk about the issues that media wants to ask them. And if it is the case, then it is discrediting the role of media as a fourth power in the country. Because media is the bridge between state and public. That's why the journalists demand more access to the politicians and the possibility to ask questions that the public needs to have answered. Then it really raised an issue of media and its independence and its relations with the state. First, Mongolian freedom of speech law, or law on media freedom, was approved in 1998, relatively earlier. But it's only one-page law. That law says two things. First, the government should not have, state offices will not have own media. And the state will not have any agency that makes censorship on media. Very important two provisions. And yet it was later on accompanied by making state-owned radio and TV into public radio and TV. So that was a special law in 2005, 7 years after that freedom of speech law. And that still this public TV and radio is financed half from their budget. A quarter of it is paid by all households through the fees, which was set long before this revolution in 1990. And another quarter of their income they receive through advertisement. So, however, it is very hard to compete with this MNB for ordinary other private TV channels. So, Mongolian media more or less out of the state monopoly, but they are in a new monopoly. That's the monopoly of politicians, their businesses, and their own medias. Journalists Without Border organization based in Berlin made a survey in 2016, and it said out of all media outlets in Mongolia, 70% belong to former or current people who has a high-ranking political positions. Indeed, in 2019, last year, there were estimated more than 500 media outlets in the country. And all of them, as I said, have each one journalist in the state palace. So that's the situation with Mongolian media. And we need more transparency of who owns media in Mongolia. And there is an attempt, there is even a parliament working group to have or to improve or to make a new media freedom law in the country. But unfortunately, this law draft have gone through several parliaments and has not yet discussed up to now. Mongolia needs new law that gives more guarantee of being bridge for media between state and public. That's our third topic today. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us. And we have today discovered three important topics of Mongolian social, economic, political life of last week. Thank you very much.